What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we begin our talks on the Lunar Sorcery Sorcerer. And this is a really cool one. This is the newest addition to the Sorcerer class, and it's got some very interesting and unique ideas. But is it enough to push it to the top of our list? We will just have to see today. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to share the video with your friends, and of course, click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So the Lunar Sorcery Sorcerer, this is a really cool addition. Now this is from Dragonlance, and so I would imagine that there maybe are some tables that may not allow this, but it is official material, so we are going to be covering it today. So I hope you all are looking forward to that. I know that I have been looking forward to covering this one for a little while, just because I haven't been that deep into Dragonlance kind of stuff, but I think that there's a lot of potential with how this adds unique abilities based on moon phases. But again, is it enough to get towards the top of our list with some really cool flavor? We're just gonna have to find that out today. At level 1, we get a couple of features, and the first is going to be Lunar Embodiment. Now, Lunar Embodiment is somewhat similar to how we got expanded spell lists back with the Aberrant Mind or Clockwork Soul. I'll leave an icard above for one of those up there. But so basically, it's an expanded spell list. And so you might be looking at this chart here and say, okay, well, I choose one of those phases, and I get one spell from whichever one that I'm choosing at the time. No, you actually get all of these spells in one go, no matter what. Doesn't matter what you've activated, and we'll talk about changing phases of the moon and that kind of thing in a second, but basically you are going to have access to all of these spells as part of your expanded spell list. However, there is a big difference between Aberrant Mind and Clockwork Soul in that you cannot switch these spells out. You are allowed to with the others, but you cannot do that with this spell list. So something to be very aware of is that what you got is what you got. So definitely be aware of that. Definitely takes this down a few notches because the spells that are on this list are maybe not the best. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, whenever you finish a long rest, you can then choose whatever phase that you want to be in. Full, new, or crescent. And while in that phase, you can cast one first level spell of whichever phase you are in for free. And so you don't have to use a spell slot there. Once you do that, you cannot do it again until you finish a long rest. So this is a really interesting way of expanding the spell list of the sorcerer. You know, we talked about how amazing it is to expand the spell list, and how that alone was really one of the reasons why we ranked the Aberrant Mind and the Clockwork Soul so highly. With this, it's a little different because we can't just swap out spells. There's not as much customizability here because everything is locked in. Now, when I'm looking at each of these, there are only 2 of them that I'm really excited about, and that's Shield and Hold Monster. The rest of them are kind of eh. Now, a lot of these are also more support-based utility kind of spells, which honestly is not a bad thing. Things like Alter Self, Phantom Steed, Dispel Magic, maybe Lesser Restoration, things like that are not that bad of spells. They're just not spells I normally would take on a sorcerer. So that's not a bad thing. If the situation comes up to use Hallucinatory Terrain, which is a very niche spell, but having it in the back could be nice, right? Just in case that situation does present itself, I'm ready. And so that could be very helpful. I'm not knocking the feature in general. I just think that there are a lot of spells here that could be a lot better. You know, there's no counter spells, there's no fireballs, there's nothing like that really help us out in blasting. There's nothing that helps us out in countering other things. I just think that the list leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, Confusion, Vampiric Touch, I'm probably not ever going to use those. Ray of Sickness, probably not. Color Spray, maybe at the beginning. But once I get to higher level, I'm probably never touching it again because that spell doesn't really scale all that well. So there aren't as many amazing options here as what have been presented in previous ones. So that's a little tough. And again, we do get a free casting of a first level spell every day. This is going to lead me into being in the full moon phase permanently, at least for now, until we start to expand on this a little bit later. So yeah, 1 free shield per day, not a bad thing. It's okay. I've got to give this an 8 out of 10. Yes, it's an expanded spell list. It doubles the number of spells that we get as a sorcerer. But when a lot of them suck and the other ones are super situational, I can't give it as much weight as I would some of the other stuff. Also at level 1, we get Moonfire, and this gives us access to the Sacred Flame cantrip, and it also basically allows us to twin it for free as long as the creatures are within 5 feet of us. Really basic feature, nothing too crazy there, but honestly, I don't mind it. Sacred Flame is a nice cantrip, and being able to cast it on 2 different creatures if they're next to each other, not bad. Situational, yes, but not that bad. Ultimately, as a feature, probably a 7 out of 10. It's nothing insane, it's nothing crazy, but I don't mind the spell. I don't mind not having to multi-class in order to get it, so it's fine. At level 6 is where things start getting interesting though, as we get lunar boons. So like I was saying earlier, really the phase of the moon wasn't all that important up until now. Now it begins to start mattering. So with this, when we choose whatever phase of the moon it is for the day, like I said, whenever you finish a long rest, you can pick whatever phase you want to be in. And so you now get to choose 2 schools of magic based on this list. Full moon gets abjuration and divination, new moon is enchantment and necromancy, and crescent is illusion and transmutation. Whenever you use a meta magic option on a spell that is of a school that is associated with whatever phase you're in, you get to reduce the cost of using that meta magic by 1 sorcery point to a minimum of 0. You get to do this a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus. This is pretty nice, actually. We have taken meta magic adept on sorcerer builds before in order to get more sorcery points. This is free sorcery points, essentially, is what this is, right? What I'm thinking of here is, let's say I want to subtle spell an enchantment spell. That makes it free, which is really, really nice. I want to twin spell polymorph. I can do that with Crescent Moon. Now it's still going to be 3 sorcery points, but it's not 4, so it's still a discount, and I still really like that. So basically, you get a free number of sorcery points equal to your proficiency bonus that can only be used for this. But honestly, I'm fine with it. Notice there's no evocation or conjuration though. Those are the ones that I'd probably want to use them on the most. So, no fireballs, no anything like that, because otherwise I would just spam empowered spell fireball all the time. And I'm assuming that most of you would too. So there's a reason for that, but there of course are damaging spells that are not of these lists. And so you can of course use that on those as well. Either way, this is really nice. It gives you extra free sorcery points that is going to scale whether you are a sorcerer or not, because it is proficiency bonus, and that is very, very helpful in my opinion. This grants this an 8 out of 10 in my opinion. I think it's really nice. I think that it's going to only get better as we get better and better spells by leveling up. So yeah, for now it's an 8, but honestly, I think it will rise as we get better and better. Also at 6th level, we get waxing and waning. And so if you don't like the phase that you're in right now, you can change it. So with this as a bonus action, you can choose one of the other options that you are not currently and spend 1 sorcery point in order to now be that. You also get back your use of the 1st level spell that you could cast for free that we got back when we gained the expanded spell list, which is really nice. And again, that is once per day, just like normal. This is nice, especially now that we have lunar boons as well. Up to this point, it really has not mattered what phase we were in, so most of the time you're probably going to be full moon just so that you get the free casting of shield. Now it makes a lot more of a difference. So yeah, now that we're getting more things with lunar boons and that kind of thing, making sure that we're in the right phase is going to be a lot more important. So having the flexibility to swap them on the fly is really, really good. Now, you do need to plan ahead if you are doing this, because just doing this for 1 spell casting is not worth the sorcery point you have to spend. The reason that they make you spend a sorcery point is so that this is not spammable, and because of that, it is not. You need to make sure that you're at least casting 2 spells or more of the new spell list in order to make this worth the point that you spent. Otherwise, you wasted it, and you might as well have just spent the normal amount of sorcery points. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Definitely requires some planning ahead, but ultimately is a nice flexibility feature that I definitely cannot hate on. Ultimately, I think this is an 8 out of 10 as well. I think the flexibility that you get here, especially now that we have lunar boons, and it's going to give us more options as we level up as well, this flexibility is pretty much necessary, and I'm glad we have it. At level 14, we get Lunar Empowerment, and this boosts each of the phases just a little bit more. So with full moon now, we now can shed bright light out to a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 feet. This helps if you can't see for whatever reason, or your buddies can't see, or whatever it is. But furthermore, you now have advantage, or a creature of your choice has advantage, on intelligence, investigation checks, or wisdom perception checks whenever they are within the bright light. The new moon now has advantage on dexterity checks, and you have disadvantage on attack rolls incoming whenever you are in complete darkness. Finally, the crescent moon gives you resistance to necrotic and radiant damage. These are not bad, right? These are not bad. The full moon, as far as having advantage on investigation and perception checks, maybe leave that to somebody that has the proper stats for that, but be nearby, right? Be the one that's helping with that and giving advantage. You're probably not going to be the one who needs to be doing that because your stats are probably not made for that, but still, it's still very, very helpful to have that help and give free advantage on that check. Definitely helpful there. New moon honestly is now becoming a lot more applicable, just because stealth checks are great. I like stealth checks, but beyond that, if you are in complete darkness and you have dark vision, so you can see, you can't be beaten by dark vision. If something else has dark vision and is attacking you, it doesn't matter. It's still disadvantage, which is really good. I think that's really, really helpful, and I think that's awesome. This is a great anti-dark vision method, and you're level 14. The vast majority of what you are going to be facing is going to have dark vision, true sight, whatever it happens to be, and be able to see you in the dark. And this just says, no, you still have disadvantage. So I like that a lot. And then crescent moon resistance to necrotic and radiant could be good. Could be good. It's situational, but could be nice, just depending on what you need for that moment. Ultimately, this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. It's a lot of support stuff. It is defensive in nature with the new moon having the disadvantage on attack rolls, but ultimately this really isn't bad. Again, I think this is an 8 out of 10 feature. I think it's perfectly average. I think it's good. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And again, having the options is really nice. And remember, we can swap this around as a bonus action and a sorcery point. So again, now we have more of an incentive to swap things around given the situation, and it's more applicable than just in combat. This gives us something to do while we aren't necessarily in combat, and I like that. Finally, level 18, we get Lunar Phenomenon, and this gives us a special ability, action, whatever you want to call it, associated with each of the phases of the moon. Now, we can use this whenever we want while we're in the phase, or you can use it as part of the bonus action that we use to swap from waxing and waning, which is really, really nice. So what do each of them give us? The full moon is going to give us even more of a radiation of light. Each creature of our choice within 30 feet of us must make a Constitution saving throw or be blinded until the end of its next turn. In addition, one creature of our choice, whether it's us or a friend, whoever, regains 3d8 hit points. The new moon is going to do something a little bit different. Each creature within 30 feet of us has to make a dexterity saving throw or take 3d10 necrotic damage and have its speed reduced to 0 until the end of its next turn. And furthermore, on top of that, you become invisible until the end of your next turn or immediately until after you attack or cast a spell. And finally, the crescent moon. You magically teleport to an unoccupied space that you can see within 60 feet. You can also bring along one willing creature that is next to you, and that creature also ends up next to you when you teleport. In addition, you and that creature gain resistance to all damage until the start of your next turn. You can do this once per day, or you can spend 5 sorcery points to do it again. This gives us a lot of amazing options. And the real icing on the cake here is the fact that you can do this as part of the waxing and waning feature. So you could be sitting in full moon so that you have your free shield, or you may be sitting in new moon so that you would have been able to subtle spell some enchantment stuff for free. And then all of a sudden you need to teleport, bonus action, sorcery point, boom, you're 60 feet away and you brought a buddy with you. That's pretty helpful. And that can really set you up for success later on, because again, then you just twinned polymorph if you want to, and it's only 3. So there's a lot of really good versatility here, and it being tied to the swapping is what really makes this nice. The ability to blind a bunch of creatures is really good. The ability to reduce their speed to 0 is also really good. And just the combination of all of these things and the ability to do all of them is nice. The 5-point cost is a little high, but we've already saved that many by having our feature that allows us to spend less. We're now spending 6 less. So we honestly have made that back and can use that to spend on this. So honestly, I don't mind it that much. So ultimately, I think this feature is really, really good. I like this a lot. This is a 9 out of 10. Very, very strong. I think that the all of these abilities here are really good. And the fact that you can just blow a couple of them per day, pretty much at the same cost as you would just blow one of them because you've saved on other things, is really helpful. So what do we think of the Lunar Sorcery Sorcerer? This is a really cool and flavorful way to do the Sorcerer. I really like it being tied to the moon phases here and getting your power from that. The lack of Moonbeam on our spell list is kind of puzzling to me, but I get that that's more of a mechanical thing than a flavor thing, but like, it's Moonbeam on a moon sorcerer? Where is it? Like, I don't know. You could have added it to one of them, but either way, what are you going to do? But the expanded spell list is good. It's good to have an expanded spell list, but ultimately the spells that are on it end up being a little bit lackluster for the most part, outside of shield and hold monster. Getting Sacred Flame is great, and I really like that. Lunar Boons is really where the power comes in, and that is amazing, being able to save us some sorcery points when we need to spend them on something that is important. And of course, it's equal to our proficiency bonus, which is going to scale really well over time. Waxing and Waning give us more flexibility is great. And then Lunar Empowerment and Lunar Phenomenon, just stacking even more power on top of what we already had. It just leads to a really nicely balanced and fun subclass. Is it busted? No. Is it as good as the Aberrant Mind or as the Clockwork Soul? I would also say no. I know a lot of people really like this one and think it's really good because of the expanded spell list. It is, but the biggest problem with it is that the Clockwork Soul and the Aberrant Mind allow you to customize what you have. They allow you to take any spell of certain spell schools, and that makes a big difference. And their lists, even just stock, are already better. So yeah, you get more spells here, but they're not as high of quality, and I would rather have quality over quantity in that regard. So it's good. It's not great. I would probably rather take a Divine Soul Sorcerer than this, and for that reason, this is getting an 8 out of 10. I think that this is going to be a bit controversial. I think the comments are going to eat me alive for this, but I just don't think it's as good. I think a lot of this is a little situational, and your things that are really good are things that you can only do a certain number of times per day, and otherwise you're just going to be a normal sorcerer with a few extra spells that are situational at times. So I can't really go any higher than that. So what do you think of the Lunar Sorcery Sorcerer? Am I too high in this? Is it way too low? Am I completely off base? And do I not know what I'm talking about? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to see your opinions there. Next time, we are going to be building one of these together, and I am looking forward to that. I've got some interesting ideas of how we can customize this and make this a really fun way to play, and make use as much as we can of everything. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Until then, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.